Hello and welcome everyone to our weekly session titled Latest in Bitcoin Tech, where we go through Bitcoin Optech newsletter, which is a weekly newsletter. And this week we will be going through Bitcoin Optech newsletter number 304, which was published on 24th of May, 2024. Now, just before we dive into the newspaper or the newsletter, this week's newsletter is absolutely mammoth. It's the biggest I remember seeing in recent history. So it has, I think, 5 to 6 news articles, and I think it has 10 changes to service and client software, has a couple of releases and release candidates, and I think it has 4 or 5, even 6, I think, notable code and documentation changes. So it's not possible for us, it will not be possible for us to cover everything. So we'll try and cherry pick, and even when I was going through the Optic newsletter, I cherry picked things and I tried to pick things which are not very technical, for which we don't need slides or notes, or we don't have to go back and forth. I tried picking up things that were straightforward and that most of us are already aware of, and there are some certain tweaks that have been added to already existing protocols or software that we're aware of. So I tried picking them. We'll try and cover those in 60 minutes.
I think that's nice, Fazil, that we don't cover the whole newsletter, but you have shortlisted something that we'll cover. Because otherwise, sometimes things are rushed and sometimes, we just cover maybe not so important things. Thank you.
Right. Okay, cool. So this week's newsletter summarizes an analysis of several proposals for upgrading LN channels without closing and reopening them, discusses challenges in ensuring pool miners are paid appropriately, links to a discussion about safely using PSBTs for communicating information related to silent payments, announces a proposed BIP for Miniscript, and summarizes a proposal for using frequent rebalancing of an LN channel to simulate a price futures contract. Also included are our regular sections summarizing changes to services and client software, announcing new releases and release candidates, and summarizing notable changes to popular Bitcoin infrastructure software. Starting with the news section. So the first bullet point of the first news article is updating or upgrading existing LN channels. Kirk-Cohen posted to Delving Bitcoin a summary and analysis of existing proposals for upgrading existing LN channels to support new features. She examines a variety of different cases, such as changing parameters. Currently, some channel settings are negotiated between parties and cannot be changed during the lifespan of the channel. Parameter updates would allow renegotiation at subsequent times. For example, nodes might want to change the number of satoshis at which they begin trimming HTLCs, or the amount of channel reserve they expect their counterparty to maintain to disincentivize closing in an old state. Updating commitments. LN commitment transactions allow an individual to put the current channel state on-chain. Commitment upgrades can allow switching to anchor outputs and V3 transactions in P2WSH-based channels, and for simple taproot channels to switch to using PTLCs. Replacing funding. LN channels are anchored on-chain in a funding transaction, the output of which is spent off-chain repeatedly as the commitment transaction. Originally, all LN funding transactions used a P2WSH output. However, newer features such as PTLCs require funding transactions to use P2TR outputs. Okay, so let's cover this much first. So basically, these are a few proposals that Kala has made to existing Lightning channels. Okay, it's three proposals primarily that she talks about. The first is changing parameters. Okay, so currently some channel settings are negotiated between parties and cannot be changed during the lifespan of the channel. So when two parties want to establish a Lightning channel among themselves, they negotiate on certain parameters, right? Before setting up a channel, we negotiate certain parameters. And when both the parties come to common terms and agree about those parameters, that is when you go ahead and set up a Lightning channel. Now, the parameter updates would allow renegotiation in subsequent times, okay? So there are certain things about the Lightning channel that keep changing and evolving during the lifetime of a Lightning channel. Like, for instance, balance, right? Every time you make a transaction or you route a payment, the balance keeps on upgrading. But there are certain things about the Lightning Okay, so yeah, so there are certain things about a lightning channel which are a dynamic that keep changing and evolving during the lifetime of a lightning channel, and there are certain parameters which are static or stagnant, right? You negotiate those parameters at the advent of the lightning channel, and they remain so till you close the lightning channel. Okay. Now, what this proposal says is that this proposal aims to incorporate mechanism to change those static parameters as well. Okay, which is not an option up till now. If you want to change those static parameters, you will have to more or less shut down the channel or close the channel and establish a new channel. Okay, so there are this proposal aims at incorporating a change in those static parameters as well. Okay, like recently in our hands-on lightning session, we went through the repository of a CLN. Okay, sorry, the directory of CLN, and we saw that there are two files, right? Backup files. One is a static backup file, and one is a dynamic backup file. Okay, so that dynamic data is the data that keeps on changing throughout the life cycle of a lightning channel, but the static data is the data that is negotiated at the advent of a lightning channel, and more or less it does not change till the channel closes. Okay, what could be an example of that static data? Trimming HTLCs. For example, nodes might want to change the number of satoshis at which they begin to trim HTLCs, or the amount of channel reserve they expect their counterparty to maintain to disincentivize closing in an old state. So at what amount would you want to start trimming the HTLCs? Number one, and number two, what amount of channel reserve must each participant maintain in the lightning channel? These are some of the parameters or some of the fields that the two partners in the lightning channel negotiate at the advent of setting up a lightning channel, and they do not change it till the end of or till the channel is closed. Okay, now what if there is a use case or there is a scenario where both the parties in a lightning channel want to amicably update these parameters? What if during the life cycle of that lightning channel they want to increase or reduce the size or the amount for trimming HTLCs, or they want to increase or reduce the amount of channel reserve? Okay, and they don't want to shut this channel and start a new channel. What do they do in this situation? Okay, they, as of now, to the best of my knowledge, there is no other alternative except for you to close the channel and open another channel. But this proposal made by Kala uh, aims at enabling the two channel partners to change static information as well, like trimming HTLCs or channel reserve, without closing the channel during the life cycle of the channel. Okay, so to better understand what use cases might be of this proposal, let's try and understand in brief what trimming HTLCs are and what channel reserve is. So would anybody like to take a shot at what both of these are, or at what one of these are, channel reserve and trimming HTLCs?
I know what channel reserves are, so I'll explain that, and you can correct me. And I think I have a feeling for what trimming HTLCs might be. I think, but I don't think I know what it is. So channel reserve is the balance that each channel partner in the Lightning channel have to maintain to disincentivize the other channel partner to cheat when the balance is really low on their end. So when Alice and Bob have a Lightning channel and Alice has exhausted her side of the balance to make payments to Bob, towards the end, Bob is incentivized to cheat her because the penalty that Bob might lose if he cheats is very low, because Bob already has received a lot of funds. So both Alice and Bob have to agree by the Lightning Protocol to maintain some channel reserve on their side of the channel, which is like the minimum skin in the game amount, so that at any point both of them are disincentivized to cheat. That is channel reserve.
Right, perfect.
Trimming HTLCs, I'll just take a shot. I don't think I know what it is. I think when any HTLC is committed on chain, it has to have a certain minimum amount, but it could differ depending on the on-chain fee at that moment. So it has something to do with that. My hunch is that.
Yeah, it has to do. So just to summarize what channel reserve is, somebody else is trying to talk. Just to summarize, our channel reserve is, as Ashiyan said, we have spoken about revoked commitment transactions. Like we've talked about commitment transactions at length when we were doing mastering the Lightning Network, and also during the Optech session, we've talked about what commitment transactions are and what a revoked commitment transaction is, and what the penalty mechanism currently in the Lightning Network is to punish a person from among the two channel partners who tries to broadcast a revoked commitment transaction. Okay. Now, when somebody tries to broadcast a revoked commitment transaction and their partner's node detects it, okay, then they can penalize the person who's trying to cheat by broadcasting a revoked commitment transaction by usurping the entire funds in the Lightning channel. So they get their share of the funds and they also get the entire share of their partner. Now, what happens is, just in case Alice and Bob have a Lightning channel and Alice has very little or no funds at all at her size, at her side, then in this situation, Alice can broadcast a revoked commitment transaction without having to worry about what if a penalty is levied upon her because she has nothing to lose. So to avoid this situation, there is a channel mechanism in a Lightning channel where both the channel partners have to park some funds to ensure that they are always apprehensive of broadcasting revoked commitment transactions. So that is what a channel reserve is. It ensures that both the partners have a skin in the game and they are incentivized to be honest rather than cheat. And what trimming HTLCs are, so basically, whenever you want to take an HTLC from a Lightning channel on chain, you have to pay a fee for it, right? And if your HTLC is so little in value that it cannot even pay the fee, it cannot even pay the mainnet fee. Let's say you're in a high fee environment, or when you locked your funds in HTLC at that point in time, the HTLC had adequate value, and you thought that HTLC will be able to pay for its fee when it goes on the mainnet. Okay, but by the time it's going on the mainnet, let's say we experience an exponential spike in the fee rate, or for whatever reason, ABC, your HTLC is so little in value that it cannot pay for its own fee. In that situation, what do you do with that HTLC? Because it's uneconomic for you to take it on chain. I believe some implementations of the Lightning network burn those HTLCs, and some implementations of the Lightning network give that to the miner. So trimming HTLCs are those HTLCs which are so little in value that they cannot pay their own fee on the mainnet, and in this scenario, these HTLCs are given as mining fee to the miners. So this is
how does the trimming HTLC reach to the miners? Because that's a fees that like a person like me, if I is paying like a certain QR code, right? So if someone has broadcasted their QR code, Lightning QR code, and I'm paying them, and I'm paying for that invoice. So that's what HTLCs are. Like, how does it accrue to a miner is what I want to understand. Like,
when you negotiate a Lightning channel with someone, right, there are certain prerequisites that both the parties agree with, right? So they agree on a certain threshold, like, okay, like this, if the HTLC is above X amount, okay, then you and I are ready to pay an on-chain fee for it. If it's below X amount, it's too little and you and I are not interested in paying any fee for it. So when you have an HTLC which is of such a meager value that it's below that threshold which you predefined with your channel partner when setting up the channel, the HTLC will directly go to the address of the miner who's mining. So the miner can avail those HTLCs. It depends on the threshold that is stipulated. If it's below it, then the miner can avail the entire HTLC. So you define the amount of trimming the HTLC, that if it's below that, if it's above that amount, then I'm willing to pay a fee and take possession of the funds in this HTLC. If it's below that specific amount, I will give it to the miner directly.
Got it.
Okay, all right. Okay, so this is one proposal, changing the parameters. So without closing the channel, during the lifespan of the Lightning channel, if the two channel partners amicably decide that, hey, we want to change the value that we stipulated at the advent of this channel for trimming HTLCs, they can do that. Or they want to change the amount of channel reserve, and they can do that. These are just two examples, and there can be a lot of static parameters that are locked in, quote unquote, at the advent of a Lightning channel. So they can be changed during the life cycle of the Lightning channel without having to close the Lightning channel. This is one of the bullet points of this proposal. The other is updating commitments. LN commitment transactions allow an individual to put the current channel state on chain. Okay, we know what commitment transactions are, right? Funding transaction is a transaction that initiates or provides liquidity to the Lightning channel, and commitment transactions are the transaction with which you shut the Lightning channel or you close the Lightning channel and you go on the mainnet. Okay, so in like on the Lightning network, hundreds and thousands of transactions can happen, but there are only two transactions that happen on chain. First is the funding transaction, which marks the beginning of the Lightning channel, and the second is the commitment transaction with which you go on the mainnet and close the Lightning channel. So we're talking here about commitment transactions. Okay, so Lightning commitment transactions allow an individual to put the current channel state on chain. Commitment upgrades can allow switching to anchor outputs and V3 transactions in P2WSH based channels, and for simple taproot channels to switch to using PTLCs. Okay. So we've all talked about anchor outputs at length in preceding sessions, okay? And by now, I'm sure most people who've regularly attended know what anchor outputs are and what V3 transactions are, okay? So just briefly, anchor outputs are basically zero value outputs that pay to an obtuse script that you use only to bump the fee. As you know, when we set up a commitment transaction, okay, we stipulate a fee. Both the channel partners amicably agree that we are willing to pay this amount of fee to take our final state of the Lightning channel on the mainnet. Okay, they cannot predict beforehand what exactly will be the fee environment when they decide to go on chain. So it's just a guess that they can get into. And mostly what people do is that they stipulate very low fee at the advent of the channel of the commitment transaction, and when they actually want to go to the mainnet, they use things like anchor outputs, okay, and they attach a child to the anchor output, and they bump the fee of the commitment transaction, taking into consideration what's the current fee at that point in time. So what if you have a Lightning channel in which there are no anchor outputs, okay, and then you want to go onto the mainnet? What do you do in that situation? Okay, so we should give the flexibility to Lightning users that if you don't have an anchor output, okay, and now you want to go on the main chain, right, on the mainnet, in this situation, you should be allowed to upgrade or modify your commitment transaction and add an anchor output to it so that you can bump the fee of the commitment transaction, okay? So this is the first one was changing parameters, static parameters. The second one is updating the commitment transaction. If your commitment transaction has a very low fee and it doesn't even have an anchor output, okay, in that situation, you should be allowed to add an anchor output to your commitment transaction so that you can bump the fee of your commitment transaction. This could be one use case of allowing to update the commitment transactions. Another example that they have given is, and for simple taproot channels to switch to using PTLCs. Okay, we know what HTLCs are. Okay, we've talked about HTLCs at length. In HTLCs, what do? Is we dock the funds. Okay, and we need to furnish a pre-image, right? We need to furnish a pre-image that if we furnish that pre-image, the funds in the HTLC get unlocked. Okay. So in this situation, what do we use? We use a mathematical hash algorithm, right? That's how HTLCs work, right? The final recipient will create a random number, for instance, or a secret of any sort, okay, and they will hash it and they will send the hash of it to the sender of the funds on the Lightning network, okay, and then to redeem those funds, okay, they will have to furnish a pre-image, okay. Now this entire mechanism happens through hash functions. But we also have another mechanism which is PTLCs. Okay, and PTLCs, I believe, let me verify it once. I think these have to do with the points on the elliptic curve. Yes, and we talked about this recently as well. When you were talking about Utrecht-Soddy, and when we were talking about curve trees, I think it was last week, a couple of weeks ago, when we were talking about curve trees, and we talked about how the Merkle trees differ from the curve trees and how the Merkle trees use hash algorithms and hash digests as its leaf nodes, and how the curve trees use a point on the elliptic curve as their leaf nodes, and how they perform an arithmetic operation between two different points of the curve to get a third point on the curve, okay. So instead of HTLCs, there is also a mechanism which is known as PTLCs, okay, where your funds are locked to a point on the elliptic curve. and this I believe is compatible only with taproot channels. Okay, and this is believed to be a more optimal way than using HTLCs. So currently we have P2WSH transactions. Okay, your commitment transaction and your funding transaction has to be P2SH for it to be compatible with the Lightning Network, and your funds need to be locked in an HTLC. Okay, but there is also testing being done with P2TR. So you can also have a funding transaction or a commitment transaction, which is P2TR. I'm not sure if any wallet is implementing that right now, but it's being tested and it's being worked on. Okay, so with that, instead of HTLCs on a P2TR transaction, you can use PTLCs. Okay, so if you don't have PTLCs, maybe you can during the life cycle of the channel, you can upgrade to PTLCs. So these are a couple of use cases of allowing Lightning channel partners to update their commitment transactions during the life cycle of the Lightning channel without having to close the Lightning channel. You can do things like adding anchor outputs without having to close the channel. You can do things like switching to PTLCs without closing the channel. Okay, so we've covered changing parameters and updating commitments. Any questions or any thoughts or any insights regarding these two before we move ahead?
Just one question: is curve trees part of PTLCs? I have very high level understanding of PTLCs. It's some different way of doing time-locked contracts, right? And I think it requires
Right.
some other primitive using elliptic curve. Have we discussed this?
Right.
I don't think it was included in the book. I think it was mentioned but not discussed in the Mastering the Lightning book.
Right. Curve trees firstly have nothing to do with our discussion today, and they have, to the best of my knowledge, nothing to do with the Lightning Network. Curve trees are specific to Utrix-OD, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Okay, so that is why I brought that into like I was just trying to strike an analogy. Okay, because they up till now we have Merkle trees, right? In the Bitcoin network, we have Merkle trees using which we validate blocks. And each leaf in the Merkle tree is a hash digest, right? We put the transactions through SHA-256, and whatever output we get, we use them as a leaf node. Okay, but in Utrix-OD we use curve trees, where instead of using hash algorithms, you take a point on the elliptic curve, you perform some mathematical operation on it, and you get another point on the elliptic curve. So that is how you build that tree. Okay, and here as well in HTLCs, we make use of mathematical hash operations, where you have a secret, you put that secret through a hash function, and then you get a hash digest. Okay, and then that hash digest, the recipient sends to the sender. Okay, and then the recipient redeem the funds has to produce that the pre-image or the secret, which was passed as an input to the hash function. Okay, so this is slightly analogous to that. There also we were moving from hash functions to points on the curve. Here also we are moving from hash functions, that is HTLCs, to point in the curve. So what HTLCs do is they use mathematical hash functions. Okay, what PTLCs do is that they use a point on the elliptic curve. They use a point on the elliptic curve, and they perform some mathematical operation which I was not able to go into the details of. But the point being, it shifts, or HTLC to PTLC is a shift from mathematical hash functions to performing arithmetic operations on an elliptic curve using points on the curve.
Right, makes sense. Yes.
Okay, so that's what it is. In
Fazil,
HTLCs we use SHA-256,
one
right,
more
which
question.
produces a 256 byte digest, and in PTLCs we use a point on the elliptic curve.
I don't think it's currently being used, right? Just one quick question. I don't think currently any Lightning implementation uses PTLCs, to the best of my awareness.
I had recently heard about this one. What's that implementation on Eclair? Phoenix. I'm not really sure, but I had read it somewhere that Phoenix is either in the beta stage, or they're working on it, or they already have something ready on it. But I remember associating Phoenix with P2TR somewhere. We can look into it whether any actual usable popular Lightning client is allowing users to create funding and commitment transactions which are P2TR. But I'm not sure.
So
Thanks.
just one question, Fazal there. So you mentioned, dumb question. You mentioned curve trees or perk trees, like the
Curve, CURV, curve.
trees. All right. And what does PTLC stand for? Like it's again point time lock
Point
contract?
time lock contracts.
Okay, perfect. Okay, sir. All right.
Yeah, it's your point time locked contracts. Here we have hash time lock contracts because they're locked to a hash, and here it's point time lock contracts because they're locked to a point on the elliptic curve. Okay, and to go into the detail of this, we will have to go into what adapter signatures are. So it's a lot of cryptography, and I know a person who's from Bitshala, or I know him through Bitshala. I think he's working on adapter signatures. So I had once thought that I should get in touch with him and dig deep into it. But then I did not have the bandwidth, and even if I somehow managed to convince him to take me through it in 60 minutes, we will not be able to do justice to the subject.
Yeah.
And even if we try to do it, we'll not be able to cover the entire letter. So I thought that let's not go into the detail of it. Let's just have an overview.
Faisal, right now the trimming of HTLCs, you if you have to do it, like you have to close the channel. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. In that case, if you close the channel, then all your HTLCs are gone, and like you open something new. Correct?
Yeah, your HTLCs that are like your trimmed HTLCs go to the miner as a fee. Your miner gets that as fee.
Okay.
But you cannot change it. Like once you set up a lightning channel and you decide that X is the amount below which all the HTLCs I'll give to the miner as the fee because they're very little in value to me. Okay, you cannot change it during the life cycle of the channel. But now this proposal allows you to change. I mean, it's just a proposal. If it gets incorporated without closing the channel at some point in time, okay, you decide that no, I want to increase the size of trimming HTLCs or decrease the amount of trimming the HTLCs, you can do that. That is what this proposal talks about. Right now, you can't do it. Once you decide at the advent of the channel, then that parameter cannot be renegotiated.
Right. Okay.
Third one is replacing funding. LN channels are anchored on chain in a funding transaction, the output of which is spent off chain repeatedly as a commitment transaction. Originally, all LN funding transaction used a P2WSH output. However, newer features such as PTLCs require funding transactions to use P2TR outputs. So I think this refers to replacing the commitment transaction in its entirety. Okay, so my understanding of this is that if you create a commitment transaction, okay, to go on the mainnet, and that commitment transaction is P2WSH, okay. Now, without closing the channel, you can change it from P2WSH to P2TR. Like you can replace your commitment transaction with another commitment transaction. Up till now, that's not possible. If you have a commitment transaction, that's it. You can't change that commitment transaction. You'll have to close the channel and start another channel and then have another commitment transaction. Okay, but this proposal aims at introducing a mechanism which will allow the users without closing the channel to change their commitment transaction entirely. So if they have a P2WSH commitment transaction, they can switch to P2TR commitment transaction. So these are the three proposals, okay. And then I think she mentioned some mechanisms to achieve these changes that she's proposed. Kirk-Cohen compares three previously proposed ideas for upgrading. Like how can we achieve some of the above mentioned proposals, or all of them, or some of them? What could be three approaches? The first is dynamic commitments. As described in our draft specification, this allows changing almost all channel parameters and also provides a generalized path for upgrading, funding, and commitment transactions using a new kickoff transaction. So one mechanism is to keep your commitment transaction completely dynamic. Okay, so this allows changing almost all channel parameters. Like whatever you want to change about your channel, you can change it. Okay, so everything will be dynamic. Your commitment transaction will be absolutely dynamic, and you can change whatever parameters you want about your commitment transaction with the consent of obviously both the channel partners. One could be splice to upgrade. This idea allows a splice transaction that would already necessarily upgrade a channel's on-chain funding to change the type of funding used, as well as optionally its commit transaction format. It doesn't deal directly with changing channel parameters. So using splicing, you can change your commitment transaction. You can change it from, for instance, P2WSH to P2TR. This will not impact directly the channel parameters, okay? Because if you change only the commitment transaction, the channel parameters will not be amended. But if you want to, like one use case where you only want to change your commitment transaction, you can do it via splicing. Upgrade on reestablish, also described in a draft specification. This allows changing many channel parameters anytime two nodes reestablish a data connection. It doesn't deal directly with funding and commitment transaction upgrades. So one mechanism could be allow two nodes when they get disconnected from each other, when they reestablish a connection with each other, allow them to update some channel parameters. Okay, they will not be allowed to update the funding transaction or the commitment transaction, but because they're disconnected and they connected with each other again, okay, maybe if the ambience around them has changed and they need to renegotiate certain parameters. So in this situation, when two nodes disconnect with each other and they connect with each other again, then they should be allowed to negotiate some channel parameters which exclude the funding and the commitment transaction. If these are some of the mechanisms that can be deployed to achieve what we talked about above. So changing parameters, updating commitment transactions, and replacing the funding transactions can be achieved by the dynamic commitments or splicing or upgrade on reestablish the data connection. So more or less, this is what we had to cover in the first news article. If anybody has to share or any questions, they can go ahead and ask or share whatever they have to share. Else we can move on to the next news article. Cool. So the next one is challenges in rewarding pool miners. Ethan Tuttle posted to Delving Bitcoin to suggest that mining pools could reward miners with eCash tokens proportionate to the number of shares they mined. The miners could then immediately sell or transfer the tokens, or they could wait for the pool to mine a block, at which point the pool would exchange the tokens for Satoshis. Both criticisms and suggestions of the idea were posted. He found especially insightful a reply by Matt Corello, where he describes an underlying problem. There are no standardized payment methods implemented by large pools that allow miners to calculate their payouts over short intervals. Two commonly used payout types are paper share, that's PPS. This pays a miner proportionately to the amount of work they contributed, even if a block isn't found. Calculating the proportionate payout for the block subsidy is easy, but calculating it for transaction fees is more complicated. Corello notes that most pools appear to be using an average of the fees collected during the day the share was created, meaning the amounts paid per share can't be calculated until a day after the share was mined. Additionally, many pools may tweak the fee averages in a way that varies by pool. Paper last and shares PPLNS rewards miners for shares found near the time the pool finds a block. However, a miner can only be sure that a pool found a block if the miner themselves found it. There's no way in the short term for a typical miner to know the pool is providing them with the correct payout. This lack of information means miners won't quickly switch to a different pool if their main pool begins cheating them of payments. Stratum V2 doesn't fix this, although candid pools can use a standardized message to tell miners that they're going to cease paying for new shares. Corello links to a proposal for Stratum V2 to allow miners to verify that all of their shares are accounted for in payouts, which may at least allow miners to detect if they aren't being paid correctly after a longer period as today's. Discussion was ongoing at the time of writing. Okay, so basically there are different mechanisms that different mining pools, to the best of my knowledge, deploy to paying the miners, right? Like some miners pay per share. Okay, I mean they pay a fixed amount of share to the miners. Okay, so it's like the risk is entirely on the mining pool and not on the miners. Okay, so the miners get fixed amount of payment in resonation with the amount of hashing power that they contribute. Okay, and the miners don't have to wait for the mining pool to find a block or to mine a block successfully. So whether the pool mines a block or the pool does not mine a block, the mining pool has reserves. Okay, the mining pool has reserves of bitcoins. Okay, so whether they are successfully mining a block or they are not successfully mining a block, they commit to paying the miners at regular intervals in direct proportion to the hash power that they are contributing. Okay, and then there are some pools who only pay you when they find a block. Okay, so in case A, even if it's been a long period of time and the mining pool has not found a block, the solo miners will still get get paid. Okay, so the entire risk is on the miners, and the miner finds lots and lots of blocks in quick succession. Then again, the solo miners, the mining pool, if it mines lots and lots of blocks in quick succession, even then the solo miner will get its share in proportion to the computational power that it has directed. So the risk is entirely on the mining pools, and for that they have a Bitcoin reserve from which they can pay out to the miners even if they did not find a successful block for a long tenure of time. And then there are some other pools, like I mentioned, which will only pay you if they find a block. Okay, so if they find lots and lots of blocks, you also get paid in proportion. If they don't find a block for a long period of time, you also don't get anything. Okay, so these are two mechanisms that I'm aware of. There might be others out there as well. Okay, so and other thing is that there also is a threshold, right? Like if you are entitled to a very small payment, the mining pool will not pay you. If you are contributing a very meager amount of hash power, the mining pool is not incentivized to pay you immediately. Okay, so there's a threshold that you need to reach that threshold. You need to be like the mining pool should owe you X amount of funds or bitcoins. Only then will you be eligible for a payout. Okay. So in this situation, what happens is at times the miners have to wait for a long period of time to get paid, and they don't get paid. They have to wait till that certain threshold is reached and they are eligible for a payout. So what this proposal suggests is that instead of immediately paying the miners bitcoins, what the mining pool can do is they can immediately pay the miners eCash tokens. Okay. Now, they can be any cash tokens. We've talked about Cashew specifically in one of our Optech sessions in detail. So whoever wants can go back and look at it, what e-token, what e-cash is and what Cashew is. So what the mining pool can do is that, if you are eligible for a payout, if a solo miner is eligible for a payout, but the payout does not reach that threshold, so obviously the mining pool will not pay the miner. What the mining pool can do is the mining pool can pay eCash tokens to the solo miners. Okay, so instead of paying them shares in bitcoins or making them wait till they reach a certain threshold or making them wait till they find a block, what you can do is you can immediately start paying the miners at a certain fixed interval of time eCash tokens. If the miners want, then they can sell those eCash tokens to somebody else for bitcoins, or sell those eCash tokens to somebody else for sats on the Lightning network, or sell those eCash tokens to somebody else for liquid BTC. Okay, and if they don't want, then they can keep the possession of those eCash tokens when the miner actually finds a block, or when their payout reaches a certain threshold. Then the solo miners can sell those eCash tokens or return those eCash tokens back to the miners, and the miners can then pay them in bitcoins. Okay, so like what this does is that if a miner needs frequent payments, if they don't want to wait till the mining, somebody wants to talk?
No, Faisal.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So if you are a solo miner and you don't want to wait till the pool that you are mining with finds a block, or you don't want to wait till you reach a certain threshold of bitcoins after which you are eligible for a payout, what you can do is in this situation ask your mining pool to give you eCash tokens at regular intervals. With those eCash tokens, you can either find a buyer that is willing to buy your eCash tokens for bitcoins. Okay, so you can redeem them instantaneously, or you can find somebody on the Lightning network who can take your eCash tokens and swap them. Okay, there are like atomic swaps between Cashew and sats on the Lightning network, or Cashew and the liquid BTC network, or you can keep hold of those eCash tokens, and when your mining pool finally finds an entire block or you are eligible for a payout, then you can return those eCash tokens and redeem them for Bitcoin. So how this can help the miners is that the miners don't have to maintain a reserve now. They don't have to maintain a Bitcoin reserve. Okay, so like initially what used to happen is that even if you're not mining a block for a long tenure of time, you have to constantly pay the solo miners. They're not going to wait till you actually mine a block. So for that, you need to have a Bitcoin reserve. From that reserve, you keep on paying them and paying them and paying them, and hope that you don't exhaust your Bitcoin reserve before you mine your next block. Okay, so this reduces the risk on the miners. Okay, and this also incentivizes, this reduces the risk on the mining pools, and this also incentivizes the miners, because now they don't have to wait till their pool finds a block, or they don't have to wait till their payout reaches a certain threshold. They can immediately or at fixed intervals get e-cash and finds buyers for those for that e-cash and immediately convert it into sats on the Lightning Network or liquid BTC or Bitcoin, etc. And even if they don't want to do that, they can just keep possession of it, and when the mining pool finally finds a block or they're eligible for a payout, then they can get actual Bitcoins in exchange of their e-cash tokens. So this is what this proposal more or less is about. So I found this little interesting. I mean, I don't know what the trade-offs are, but I found this little interesting. So yeah, if somebody would like to say something.
Yeah, anyway, they have to either, the pool has to either adopt a PPS or a PPLMS, right? Except that they will be paying using eCash.
Right.
Okay, so they'll have to make like a provision to pay the miners. Instead of having a reserve of BTC, you will have a reserve of eCash. Correct?
Right. I think you can have a reserve of eCash, or you can mint your own eCash. Like if there is a mining pool, I'm not saying I endorse this, but just to say, if there is a mining pool that has a good reputation, that the mining pool can become its own mint, right? Anybody can become its own mint, right? You can also run a node and you can also mint your own tokens, right? And if you have people that are ready to buy your tokens, then you can start selling those tokens. So if the mining pool has a good reputation, if the solo miners trust the mining pool, then the mining pool can start minting its own tokens if there are buyers for it in the market.
Right.
Fazil, I had a question. I think this is a solved problem, but I don't remember the answer for it. That's why I'm asking it in a group. So miners usually in a mining pool, like they face this problem that like a small miner has incentive to broadcast, his share of his share of hashes. But like if they really hit the jackpot and if they really hit the lucky hash, then they can just keep it for themselves, right? They can broadcast all the unlucky nonsense, especially something which can qualify for a reward but is not as good as a lucky nonce, like maybe 1/10 as proof of work or 1/100th proof of work, right? So like how does the mining pool operator deal with those hassles? Like I think there must be a way to solve for that, but I don't recollect. So if you know that, can you share?
I don't think I completely understood the problem statement. Are you trying to say that it's like there's a small miner who is participating with a mining pool, and the miner guesses the nonce correctly, and the miner cannot broadcast it to the mining pool?
What I was saying was miners are clearly like randomly guessing nonsense. Now they know that if they get lucky, that lucky the reward of lucky nonce will get divided into all the miners, because like all these miners were working to generate the lucky nonce, right? So as long as my nonce was lucky enough to qualify for the mining pool reward. So mining pool reward comes to you if you are in the vicinity of say 1/100th of the requisite nonce that you should have generated, right? So for example, so the difficulty level is set at X level, and if you generate like X by 10 or X by 100, you will still sort of qualify, I think, for the mining reward. So I'll broadcast all those kind of nonsense to the pool, but when I actually hit the jackpot, I'll not broadcast it. How does mining pool like deals with this kind of incentives?
I think, Setu, if you join a pool, whoever might be the worker who hits the nonce and finds the block, the payout, the coin-based transaction will go to an address that is controlled by the pool. Am I right, Faisal?
To be honest, I'm not the right person to be answering these questions. I'm not aware of the problem that Setu is talking about, so I will not be able to validate. If you're aware, then please go ahead and answer his question, and he can verify whether you were able to answer his question.
I think what I understand is that Setu is saying like I'm a worker and I get to guess the norms correctly. So now instead of giving the reward to the entire pool, is there a way in which I can take the reward for myself?
Yes.
Am I right, Setu?
Yeah. That's almost the question.
Yeah. In that case, I think if you enter a pool, the template is built by the pool. Like you don't get to, because you are a worker, you don't get to decide that you don't get to assemble the block. So while assembling the block, it is the pool that will put in the coin-based transaction for themselves. So there is no way that you can control. You get to control coin-based transaction.
Got it. Thanks, Bala. This was a question that's been in my head since quite some time. So thank you. There's no way to cheat the pool operator, basically.
Yeah, no, you can't. You don't get to decide what goes into the block. You don't get to decide what is a coin-based transaction. So it's all done by the pool.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Also, to add one point, there is no such thing as getting close to the required hash, because every input could technically produce the correct hash. There's no way for somebody to know. So the only way to determine or distribute the reward is by just the hash rate that you bring to the mining pool. So it's literally just measured in power or percentage of the hash rate. And you cannot measure by being close to the required output. I think that was part of your question, Setu, right?
But there is a way to measure if you are close to the. There is, because what happens is the numbers are so random that if the summation that you are making does get you to say 1/10 of the difficulty of the current mining difficulty, it means that you have done like 1/10 as much work as is required, right? So
no, it doesn't. Right. So I might be wrong, but how SHA-256 works, or how mining and proof of work is that you take random inputs, and then you hash them to SHA-256, and you try to get the minimum number of zeros, or within a range of numbers.
Yes.
Right.
So effectively, how this works is, say the difficulty level is set to be so high that you need 1 million attempts to get it right. I'm just saying, right? And you got it right in the first.
Let's talk in zeros. Let's say that the difficulty level is such that you need to get 9 zeros. Okay.
Yeah.
9 zeros at the start. If you get 1 0, then you 10% there. If you get 2 zeros, then you're 20% there. So that will help us understand. But
absolutely. So say the difficulty level set such that you have to get the lucky nonce, which when the transaction is hashed, you get 9 zeros, right? Now, if someone has gotten 8 zeros, it does not mean that he was randomly lucky, like he just hit it right. He must have attempted enough number of times to get 8 zeros, right? So
no, it does tell you that he must have attempted a certain number of times, but so it does not get you any closer to the 9 zeros.
It does, right? Like it does, no? Like this difficulty level of 9 zeros, earlier it used to be 8 zeros, and it used to take a certain amount of hash power. So when someone has guessed 8 zeros, it means almost that kind of hash power must have been exhausted by this person. Even if they were lucky randomly at one time, and as in it's probabilistic, sometimes they could have spent just 20% of the requisite hash power. Sometimes it might cost them 200, 500 times of the hashing to get those 8 zeros, right? So
I think you can measure it directly in the hash power you bring, right? It's like if you hash X number of times, and if you hash 2x number of times, you are 2 times more probable to get closer to the exact number of zeros.
Yes, and I don't think the mining pool rewards people just because their templates are being sent back, right? So their template is also being calculated at the miner's end, right? And how does a mining pool reward? Like, because say there's a mining pool operating, and Shreyan sent me the lucky nonce, so I sent Shreyan some fees of the mining pool, but then Bala also worked, Setu also worked, Fazal also worked. We didn't get rewarded anything, and it can happen that Setu can work his entire life and cannot get rewarded because he was always lucky. He always used to get 8 zeros, 7 zeros, but never the 9 one. So the whole point of joining a mining pool is to remove that uncertainty from rewards. right? So it's not that if you're running a small pool, it will take you 20 years to get to a lucky Bitcoin block. It's just that if you put in as a part of mining pool, then you can be lucky in like 6 months. You will not get a whole Bitcoin block reward. You will get a share of reward because you touched enough difficulty. So it's democratizing that, right? So how do they democratize this? By reducing the requirement. So you can submit something with 7 plus zeros or 8 plus zeros. I think so. So that more, yeah.
I think if you bring your worker to the pool, there is your hash rate will be calculated. Like you can show to the pool that you have so much hash rate. Like you can do so many hashes per second.
And how do you do that? How do you do that? How do you can claim that I have 7 tera hashes per second machine, but the way to prove that is through the lucky nonce. So you generated something with 7 zeros in it. That's how you prove it.
No, you don't have to hit the lucky nonce and find a block actually. Like you might have spent the whole time of the last 10 minutes guessing some random numbers which are not the actual nonce which goes below the difficulty. What you do is that I think you will submit to the pool that for the past epoch or like for the past 10 minutes I have made so many hashes and this is my hash rate. You will submit to the pool is what I guess. I'm not very sure.
But how do you prove that, Bala? How do you prove that as a miner in the mining pool? As a miner in the mining pool, how does the mining pool operator verify that he's actually gone through that many nonces?
Submitting so many things to a mining pool does not even make sense because you need to transfer all that through a wire, right? Through a connection. And so if I'm sending so many nonces and like mining pool has to calculate again as to which, like if someone got lucky, I think these individual miners just submit the proof that either they got lucky, like completely lucky, 9 zeros,
I think I understand your question.
or 8 zeros or 7
I think
zeros.
I understand your question. And Bala, to your question, if you can answer that, how will the miners prove to the mining pool that we have actually hashed this many nonces or this many attempts?
Yeah, once my rough idea of the workflow is that once you join a pool, then you will be sent the block template by the pool. So once you receive the pool, you start hashing. So I think because there is a way for the pool to send you a block template, there should also be a way for you to send back your hash to the pool. I think it's a two-way process and it's a continuous process. And the pool using their, I think it should not be in the pool. I think it should be in the Stratum protocol. It's all, I think it's all inside the Stratum protocol. I have not had the time to understand the Stratum or Stratum V2. So that's what my guess is that because you have a way for the pool to send you a block template for you to hash, then you should also have a way to send to the pool back what you have hashed. It might be that finds the block, or it might not be a hash that finds the block.
Right.
My hunch is
My point is that
download the template, but you can
if I just say one sentence. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you. I was just saying that, Bala, you're absolutely right. I think, but when you send a block template as a mining pool operator, it's very easy to verify what the block template is, because it should include valid transactions and it should have the standard timestamp and all the details that a block needs to have and the block header. But as the miner itself, there is no specific data that you can give that the mining pool operator can verifiably check that this is correct hash, right? You just have to trust. You have to verify by giving the input to the SHA-256 function and get the output and see that you have actually done the hash. This is where I'm getting within the mining pool. How do they coordinate?
If you are a malicious actor, you can just keep sending to the pool some hashes. You may have hashed it, or you might not have hashed it. You might have them.
How do you eliminate trust, right? How do you eliminate trust between mining pool operator and the miners?
That I don't know. I think we have to read the V2 stratum or stratum protocol.
So something that I can suggest is Ocean has had uploaded or shared this. I think it's a Muhammad 6070 or I don't maybe in a 100 page PDF on how their payout works. So it had a lot of mathematics, a lot of mumbo jumbo. I did not get the time to go through it. So like if somebody's like really into it, because very soon I am planning to dive into the mining rabbit hole and will try to understand the nitty-gritties of the mining network. So hopefully next time we have this discussion, I'll have some valuable insights to share. But yeah, as of now, the payout mechanism, I am pretty foreign to it, having never read anything substantial about it as far as the payout rewards and how they exactly happen and what could be the adversarial scenarios where a miner can try to cheat the mining pool. I personally will not be able to comment. So yeah. Just pointing to that, that you might find on I think Ocean's website, or maybe I'll try and find it from somewhere. I had posted it at Bitshala a long time back, but if I find it again, I'll post it. So it's a very long document in which they first describe the current mechanisms in which the other mining pools are paying their miners and how those mechanisms they believe are not optimized or are not solo miner friendly, and how they plan to or how they pay out to those who participate with them, and how that is a more optimal way and a better way and a more transparent way, and how other pools are not transparent and how they are transparent. So it's like an entire document that covers all of those things. So whoever is interested in reading, probably find on their website. Cool. We are already at the 9-hour mark. Let us just take one more news article. We can wind up. Let's go for this. Channel value pegging. Tony Clausen posted to delving Bitcoin a proposal with working code for stable channels. Imagine Alice wants to keep an amount of Bitcoin that equals 1000 USD. Hey guys, this is this is not very technical, okay? This is pretty straightforward. So I'll read it very slowly, okay? And then whoever would want to explain it can at least try and summarize what they understood from what I read. Because this is not at all technical. You don't need any beforehand information or any research. It's pretty straightforward. So channel value pegging, okay? Tony Clausen posted to Delving Bitcoin a proposal with working code for stable channels. Imagine Alice wants to keep an amount of Bitcoin that equals 1000 USD. Bob is willing to guarantee that either because he expects BTC to increase in value or because Alice is paying him a premium, or both. They opened a Lightning channel together, and every minute they perform the following actions, okay? They both check the same BTC to USD price sources. If the value of BTC goes up, Alice reduces her Bitcoin balance until it's equal in value to 1000 USD, transferring the excess to Bob. If the value of BTC goes down, Bob sends enough BTC to Alice until her Bitcoin balance is equal in value to 1000 USD again. The goal is for the rebalancing to occur frequently enough that each price change is below the cost to disadvantaged party of closing the channel, encouraging them to simply pay and continue the relationship. Clausing suggests that some traders could find this minimally trusted relationship preferable to custodial futures markets. He also suggests that it could be used as the basis for a bank that issues dollar-denominated Vcash. The scheme would work for any asset for which a pre-market price could be determined. Anybody like to summarize?
President, do you mind scrolling to the last paragraph? I just
This
want to. Yes.
Yeah, this is irrelevant. You can still read it, but this is irrelevant.
Okay. Right.
I keep it here. Anybody wants to read? I'll keep it here for like 30 seconds again.
Yeah, so basically it's kind of maintaining a stable channel in terms of fiat. So what is envisioned here is that there could be service providers who are willing to maintain the channel's fiat value to a fixed pegged amount for a fee. So the idea here is to get price actions from 3 or 4 different price points, like through different exchanges, and then set a frequency at which to check the price, and then transfer sats between the two parties in the channel. The price goes up, the sats flow in one direction, and if the price goes down, the sats flow in the opposite direction. So that's what is the whole idea, and this requires one thing is that it requires you to obtain price from like publicly available exchanges, and then find some sort of a mathematical average or mean among the different data points, and both the parties should agree upon the price, and then do the transfer. So that's the gist behind this channel value technique.
Have you read this proposal earlier as well, or you heard about this for the first time when I read it?
No, I listened to the podcast.
That is what, man. I was blown away. I was like, how is it even possible? You are describing this with utmost precision after just listening to it for a couple of minutes. So yeah, cool. But still good job, yeah. I would have labeled you like a wizard or something had you not told me that you read this or listened to this earlier. Right. Yeah, so that's more or less what it is. Okay, so basically let's assume there's an Alice. Okay, Alice wants to own Bitcoin, but Alice does not want to expose herself to volatility. Okay, Alice is afraid of Bitcoin's volatility. Bitcoin goes up 20% within 24 hours. Bitcoin comes down 20% within 24 hours. So Alice wants to own Bitcoin, but Alice does not want to expose herself to Bitcoin's volatility. Okay, and let's say there's a Bob. Okay, Bob, let's say, assumes that Bitcoin's price will go. Okay, Bob believes that Bitcoin's price is going up. He's a maximalist or whatever. Okay, this could be one scenario. There can be millions of the scenarios. I'm just cooking up one scenario. Okay, so Bob and Alice meet at a common point which incentivizes both Alice and Bob. Okay, so what Bob and Alice do is they set up a stable channel. Okay, they set up a stable channel where both of them peg their Bitcoins at the current USD price. So let's say right now the price of one Bitcoin is $70,000 US. Okay, so Alice pledges one Bitcoin pegged at $70,000 US. Bob pledges one Bitcoin pegged at $70,000 US. Okay, now let's say Bitcoin's price goes down. Okay, from $70,000 US to $65,000 US. Okay, in this situation, Bob will transfer Bitcoins worth $5,000 US to Alice, okay, to make sure that Alice's Bitcoin are retained at 70,000. Okay, so Bitcoin's price goes up or goes down, Alice's Bitcoin that is pegged in the stable channel will always be 70,000 rupees. Okay, so if Bitcoin's price goes down to 65,000, Alice will compensate Bob will compensate Alice by sending Alice Bitcoins worth 5,000. Okay, so now Bob's Bitcoins will be at 65,000, which is already the price, plus 5,000 that he's given to Alice, so around 60,000, and Alice will still have 70,000. Okay, and if the Bitcoin's price, let's say, goes up to 80,000, then again in this situation, Alice will give 10,000 to Bob. Okay, and here Bob gets rewarded because Bob believed that Bitcoin will go up, and Alice gives the excess 10,000 Bitcoins worth 10,000 USD because she does not want to get subjected to volatility. Okay, so if Bitcoin's price goes up, Alice will pay Bob. If Bitcoin's price goes down, Bob will pay Alice. At the end of the day, if price goes up, then Bob benefits. If the price goes down, then Bob loses. But Alice, neither will she gain nor will she lose. Her one Bitcoin will be pegged at 70,000 for X amount of time till which the stable channel exists. So this is what it is. So people who want to own Bitcoin, but they don't want to get exposed to Bitcoin's volatility, they can just peg their Bitcoins in the stable channel, and whether Bitcoin's price goes up or Bitcoin's price goes down, they will come out of the stable channel at the same price at which they entered the stable channel. So they will lock the price of their Bitcoin, whether the price goes up or the price goes down, as long as they are a part of the stable channel. Their Bitcoin will be pegged in USD to a certain price value which they locked at the time of entering the stable channel. And the counterparty or the other person, Bob, if the price goes up, then they benefit from it. Okay, they gain more than they should have, and if the price goes down, then they lose more than they ideally would have. That is what is this concept of stable channels.
Just one question first is that the first paragraph says either because he expects BTC to increase in value or because Alice is paying him a premium. A very basic question. What is the second part of this? I mean, I understand that why Bob is doing this. The incentive for Bob is for the is expecting BTC to increase in value. But what's the second part of it? How does Alice paying a premium affect?
Fee.
So for this
Could be-
service,
Safety, you're not audible. At least me.
yeah. So I was saying, I was explaining that Shreyan to that Shreyan's question. Basically, Alice wants amount equal to 1,000 USD, right? So in one case, Bob is will either have to sort of will have excess of Bitcoin because the price has gone up, so he has accumulated some Bitcoin. The other case could be wherein he might have lost Bitcoin because the price has gone down and he has to supply Bitcoin from his side. And in that case, he will expect like some payment. It's like buying options, right? So you buy an option that in future, 1 year from now, I'll buy oil at 80 rupees, which is the current price, right? So someone will only enter into this option if you pay them some rupees, like 2 rupees or 3 rupees. Otherwise, why will someone enter into this option with you?
Right. So the risk that Alice has, Bob is it's like a contract where Alice has no risk. Alice has nothing to lose. Okay, she might not gain, but she has nothing to lose. And Bob is taking all the risk on his side. So Bob needs to be incentivized, for taking this risk and bearing Alice's volatility. So either Bob benefits if the BTC price goes up, then Bob benefits. But if it goes down, then Bob will have to be compensated, not in direct proportion to the amount of BTC that's gone down, because in that case it doesn't make any sense. But some fee for being a participant of the stable channel, some fee Alice will pay to incentivize Bob, like Setu said.
Right. Sorry, right. I think premium here means a fixed fee, right? That Alice is willing to pay Bob a service fee in a way.
Yeah.
Is that a correct way to
That's
say
what
it?
options.
These
that's
are
what-
just ideas, right? So like like pinpointing exactly what the premium would be quite premature, because it's just an idea that was posted on Delving Bitcoin. Once it gains more consensus among the community, then generally the developers will sit and craft exactly what the premium should be. Right now it's just a premium, I believe.
That's what
I think does this
premiums
describe
are.
how options work entirely? I have recently only started to understand them. So has anyone else? I think Saurabh described options. Is it exactly how they work?
Yeah, so there are two kinds of option. Like as the name suggests, buying contract and selling contracts. So and there are a mix of them too. Like those kind of options are also there. And premiums are exactly like the term that they use in options. So if I am buying an option, if I am selling an option, I'll put up a premium to the other party, and to sort of have that. And why do they do that? It's because I want a certain outcome not to be affected. I don't want to be affected by like some change in the outcome. For example, you buy a flight ticket, right? And then you buy insurance, right? In case it cancels, you refund me the whole money, right? So, or get me a different flight. So I'll pay a premium of 500 to have that option. That even if the flight cancels, you get me a separate flight. So that's how it works in options as well.
The implementation of this happens outside the protocol, right? Like you have to construct some.
Also,
Also
the Lightning channel, right? They open a Lightning channel together, so it's a Lightning channel.
But how do they make sure that they respect the clause? Like
Getting the price, updating it, those kinds of things happen outside, like.
That implementation, I'm not sure. I mean, see, you can lock your funds in a commitment in what you say, a funding transaction, okay? And every time the price fluctuates, you can make those Lightning transactions, okay? And eventually, when you want to close a stable channel, the final amount that 70,000 rupees for Alice and whatever for Bob, you just go on chain with it. Okay. Now, how do you query the APIs? I believe will have to happen outside the network, because I'm not aware if we can query an API from the Lightning channel.
But this is a great business to be in. Like if someone,
But you can. Yeah, you can. I mean, we've talked about plugins recently, right, Bala? So there are plugins in CLN which interact with APIs. So I think you can. You can just build a plugin that queries 2-3 different sources for BTC prices at every X amount of seconds, and based on that you can make channels. So
then how do you compute inside the Lightning network? Like you have to query, then get the data, then you have to calculate the mean, and then check the channel balances both sides.
Yes, you have to have a third party. So you have to check.
yeah,
Only
you have
after
to make
doing
an API call. You have to make an API call, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
so if you've got Bitcoin, this is another service that you can start, because in the long run, you know that Bitcoin prices are going to shoot, but a lot of people want a stable USD wallet, a stable USDs in their wallet, right? And like they don't want to hold dollars or USDT. So this is a great service because you will.
You are literally describing stable stats on Galoy.
This is a little like stable.
It's already
sats.
happening, right?
Yeah, this is a little like stable sats, but in this case, anyone could be that party and not just Galoy. I think Galoy charges
Right.
something for stable sats, right? You have to pay some money to Galoy.
Yes.
Fees.
I think this is within the LN protocol itself. So yeah, you're still trusting the API to query from a third party about the USD price. But anybody running a LN channel can technically do this.
No, I don't think you are trusting Ellen for this. You are trusting the other party, Bob, for this.
Yes.
So
To make the
Bob-
fiat payment, or
yeah,
right?
Yeah, so Bob,
Right.
it will work on Bob's reputation. Like if I do not trust Bob, and we get into an agreement wherein my channel balance has to have BTC equal to 1000 USD, and Bob cheats, Bitcoin prices fall, and Bob is like, I'm not transferring more Bitcoin to you. Like keep your $5 that
Right.
you
And
gave
there
me.
will also be cases where there will be a tracking error, and Bob might not be able to, like to the dollar, he might not be able to maintain it. Like it might be off by $1 or $2. So yeah.
Yeah, but this is interesting. Hey Fazal, you there? I don't hear you, Fazal.
Yeah, why is it can't hear you?
Okay, you can hear him.
No.
No.
I don't think Kevin is saying something.
Oh,
initiate payments, right? But here that should not be the case, because the price of BTC fluctuates like every second. Okay, so you have to make multiple API calls every minute. Okay, and you cannot expect Bob to manually make those payments every minute. Just sit there and check the price and make API calls and make the payment. So this has to be an entirely automated process where automatically API calls are being made at regular intervals, few seconds or X amount of times in 1 minute, and every time both the channel partners make an API call, they come to agreements on what's the current BTC and USD price. Immediately, payments are triggered on their own without having to manually initiate the process.
True.
So I think when you're doing something automatically, the chances of Bob or Alice cheating is mitigated, because you have a software doing that for you automatically.
But then Bob can always switch off the software, no? Like Bob is, you have to trust eventually on Bob that Bob will not cheat. Once you,
Yeah, and Bob has to be on it.
Right, then there has to be a mechanism. Like for instance, if Bob is offline, then Alice can make an API call, and whatever is the current BTC USD price, based on that you create a commitment transaction and then close the channel or something like that. Yeah, a mechanism has to be there in place.
Yeah.
True. So yeah, we're at 9:20, so I don't think we'll be able to cover anything else. But still, whatever we covered, I think was interesting. All the three news articles were